Hi there, my name is Jasmin Junger and I've been using Photoshop for about 20 years now. Today I want to start a new photo manipulation video tutorial series for beginners and advanced users where I share my insights into photo manipulation based on Adobe Photoshop. First things first, before we can dive into the arguably more interesting stuff, I wanted to make sure everybody knows some basic terms in relation to the Photoshop workspace that I will be using in all coming tutorials. So let's take a little tour. On the top, we have the classic menu items you will find in any program, for example the File menu, as well as some that are very specific to Photoshop, for example the Layers menu. I will not go into too much detail here today, since I find that these are rather self-explanatory when you start using the program. However, I want to point out that on each menu item you can find the corresponding shortcut shown on the right. Shortcuts can be changed to match your individual needs by going to Edit, Keyboard Shortcuts. Below the classic menu you can find the Options bar, which changes according to the tool you choose on the left in the toolbar. If you cannot see any of these bars, go to Window and click on either the Options or Tools item to get the bars back. In the middle you will see your open document. What I like to do is to dock my main window to the workspace. You can dock and undock windows easily just by dragging them like this. This way, when I open other documents, they float on top and I can always easily find the main one I need. On the right, we have the different palettes. You can also rearrange these via drag and drop and group them any way you like. If you cannot see one of the palettes, go to Window and choose the one you are looking for and it will appear, either in its default place or it will just open it wherever it is currently located. If you want to get rid of a palette you don't need, just right-click on it and choose Close or Close Tab Group to get rid of all grouped ones. When you first open Photoshop, you will see a different layout than what I'm using here. It is the workspace called Essentials and it is one of the pre-saved ones you can choose from in the menu Window Workspace. By clicking on one of the other workspaces you can easily switch between layouts. I have my own workspace customized and saved as Kuschelärmel. I offer this for download on my website along with instructions on how to get it to show up in the list. To save your own, all you have to do is go to Window, Workspace, New Workspace, and fill in the custom name and check the boxes if you want to save keyboard shortcuts, menus, and the toolbar configuration along with the layout. For myself, I save everything so I can get my workspace set up quickly in case I need to reinstall Photoshop or I want to use it on my laptop. As download, I offer a full version and one without the extra boxes checked in case you just want the layout. Now let's briefly go through the palettes that I have visible here and why I think these are the most useful for me. On the top right, I keep the navigator visible. I find it useful for quickly changing the viewing size and panning around easily. Also, it always lets me see what the thumbnail size of my image currently looks like, which can help a lot with getting the overall composition and values right. Behind that, I have the properties, which is new in Photoshop. It basically gives you the most important data on any given layer. It changes depending on the type of layer you are looking at, a bit like the Options bar. Note that it has made having the adjustment palette visible obsolete. In older Photoshop versions, the adjustment layer controls would show up in the adjustments, but now they show up in the properties. The histogram I probably used less than I should. What you can see there is the distribution of lights on the right and darks to the left, which is good to check in order to make sure you are not having a super dark image or a way too bright one. Below these we get to the most important palette of them all, the Layers palette. This is where you can see all your layers and their blend mode, opacity, as well as their masks and various other things that I will explain in a different video because it would make this one way too long. Behind the layers I keep the channels, which may look intimidating or useless, but I will show you what it is good for when we get to the selections and layer masks episode. The last palette in the group is the Paths palette. This is very useful when working with vectors, which is again something for its own tutorial. In the small bar to the side, I have a few palettes that I need frequently, but do not need to have open constantly. The first of those is the History palette, which lets you see your last steps and undo them, or go back to the state your document was in when you opened it. You can also add snapshots in order to be able to go back to a specific point in time that may be further back than the X steps you are letting Photoshop remember by clicking the camera icon at the bottom. Next up is the Actions palette. Actions let you record your steps and play them back, so this is super useful for resizing images, adding watermarks, or adding the same text over and over, say, for your stock images. The next two palettes are Brushes and Brush Settings, which again will take a whole video to explain, so I'm not going to go into it here. The Character and Paragraph palettes are of course here for all your text needs. They are mostly self-explanatory, though there are some nifty features hidden in there that may deserve some attention in a future video. Sometimes I add some palettes to this collection when I'm doing something specific and need something else, but for the most part this is it. I think the way the workspace is now set up is nice and decluttered, while still allowing access to all the important bits. There is something else that I wanted to make you aware of, and that is the Preferences menu. It is a very good idea to go through the whole menu before you start working. For one, it will give you an idea of what you can set up to suit your needs in general, such as getting rid of the home screen or getting your reference point for the free transform back, but more importantly, it will allow you to optimize your computer's performance. The Preferences menu is located under Edit, Preferences, and the items I want to highlight are as follows. In the File Handling tab you can find the autosave options. I have it set to save every 10 minutes and it has saved me from so much frustration, but it is also something that may slow your computer down, so choose the saving interval carefully. Further down in the same tab you can choose a directory for your cloud documents. Even if you, like me, don't really use the feature, still make sure you choose a directory that is not on the same drive as your operating system, just to be sure that there will be no clutter clogging up your system's drive. I have a directory called J dedicated to just cached or downloaded files as well as serving as a scratch disk. This directory is on a physically separate drive, so it can do its thing without interfering with any of the other drives. In the Performance tab, you should choose to let Photoshop use a good amount of memory. You may find that you need to tweak this setting depending on what you want to run while you also run Photoshop. For me, the setting you see here lets me run Photoshop, record my progress in 4K resolution while running YouTube on Chrome on my second monitor. If your computer has less RAM available, you may need to make some compromises. If you are buying a new computer, get one with as much RAM as makes economic sense for you. Nothing helps Photoshop run smoother than a ton of memory. If you have a graphics card that can handle it, do check the Use Graphics Processor checkbox to benefit from features and enhancements that will make your experience more fluid. Though this is not a must unless you want to use the 3D features. The amount of history states is the place where you can tell Photoshop how many undo steps you would like it to remember. For me, 50 is fine, but if you find that your machine is running slowly, you may want to decrease this a bit. I leave the cache levels and cache tile size to the default. I haven't noticed anything that would lead me to change this. Scratch disks is a tab that is also super important. This is where Photoshop dumps anything it needs for the current operation that is too big for the memory, from history states to part of your document. That means that these disks see heavy traffic and they may clutter up with time. Therefore, it is imperative that you do not let Photoshop use one of your essential drives for this, say the one where your operating system and Photoshop itself is running from. As mentioned before, J is the drive I have dedicated to these kinds of tasks, so this is the first in the list. And just in case that should not be enough, I allow Photoshop to use F as well. If you plan on using the 3D features, you should also take a look at the 3D tab. I haven't done an awful lot with 3D yet, so I don't know if I will stick to these settings in the future. In order to help the 3D run more fluidly, I have allocated all the VRAM, which is associated to the graphics card and not the actual RAM, for Photoshop's use. So far there has been no clash with other programs running in parallel, and requiring some VRAM as well, so I'm keeping it for now. I hope this tutorial was helpful for you. If you have any more questions, suggestions, or also suggestions on what to do next, which probably should be, I guess, the layers palette. But if you have any other ideas of what I should be covering in those short basic tutorials, please let me know in the comments below, and have a nice day.